If there's one thing that most gamers can agree on, it's that gaming journalism is pathetic and you can't really trust it. And this is all due to the actions of games journalists themselves and the way they interact with each other and interact with gamers. But I was looking around on the internet today and I found an article by a games journalist coping that people don't trust them. And in that very article, they do some of the things that we specifically tell them we don't like. The article is called "It's Time to Start Trusting Video Game Reviewers. We will start trusting you when you guys make yourselves trustworthy. We don't trust you guys because you guys have shown time and time again that you aren't to be trusted. I get it, games journalists are terrible at video games. So why should we trust you then? Remember that one guy playing Cuphead? Let's ignore the fact that games journalists regularly beat entire games in a far shorter time span than regular people who don't have deadlines to meet. Then how come you guys are always complaining and asking for it to be easier? Turn a blind eye to the fact that they don't have a single guide to help them beat a difficult boss. Yeah, it's kind of expected that you're going to be able to beat games without using a guide, considering it's your job to play video games and review them. Also, I read somewhere with, From Software's Shadow of the Erdtree, they gave people hints. I don't know if that's true, and if it's true for From Software, it's probably true for other games. Or access an area with some abstruse entry method like drinking poison that kills you at any other time. Forget about the fact that they beat them before the patches arrive to make the game easier. That's funny because a lot of times patches fix a lot of the overpowered shit in the game. When Elden Ring first came out, remember how broken Rivers of Blood was, the Sword of Night and Flame? Remember the pre-patch Mimic tier? They also hate video games and choose to cover this beat because they want to destroy the entire industry. It doesn't matter that wages are low across the sector and crunch is rife, especially when reviewing 100-hour games with bafflingly tight turnarounds. We hate video games and can't wait to tear them down. I know they're trying to be sarcastic and funny here and play into it, but first of all, you're not funny, and second of all, you guys definitely make it seem like you hate video games. When I look at a gaming journalist show gameplay, they almost always play like they were kicked in the head by a donkey, and somehow gaming journalists just always manage to have the opposite opinion to the majority of gamers. The myth that games journalists not only suck at video games but actively hate the medium is one that I've never understood. However, the issue with game reviews is much easier to parse. I mean, if you guys don't suck at video games, then how come it's almost always gaming journalists asking for easy modes and stuff, and when we see your gameplay, you almost always play as if you've been kicked in the head by a donkey? Gaming in 2024 is team-based. Your Team Xbox or Team PlayStation, Team Fortnite or Team COD, Team Stellar Blade or Team Censorship, Team Developer or Team Journalist. That's how many gamers see it, at least. Oh god, he brings up the censorship. Please don't go into social issues in this fucking article. That's one thing we can't stand about you gaming journalists. Let me make this clear. There's nothing wrong with talking about social issues, but there's a time and place for it. Gaming journalists almost always try to make everything about gaming about social issues, and they'll bring it up when it's not even related. I remember a Kotaku article where they talked about the PS5, did a review for the PS5, and they started talking about, wars going on around the world and shit, and motherfucker, we're here for the PS5. They did a PS5 review, and half the review was them just talking shit to you saying, oh, you're privileged, and you're here having fun on your PS5 while other people are suffering in the world. There's a major problem with games marketing that fuels this feudal misery. Hype trailers for games years away from release whip fans into fervor, and the excitement heightens to a level where any criticism of the game is seen as a personal slight. Calling Stellar Blade's protagonist Eve boring means that you're a part of the pro-censorship wokerati. God, dude, of course the games journalist has to bring this shit up. No, most people who play Stellar Blade aren't gonna say you're part of the wokerati, whatever the fuck that means, because you think the game's character is boring, who can't stand a beautiful woman leading a game. I mean, there are people out there who don't want pretty women in video games being the main characters. I remember Microsoft had this thing where they didn't want curvy women or some shit. Team Elden Ring got mad last week when a couple of reviews said it was too difficult. Oh, but games journalists aren't bad at games, right? Remember, guys? Accusations flew across the Twitter sphere. The critics behind said reviews were told in no uncertain terms to get good. Oh, boo-hoo, you got told to get good on the internet. As misogynistic as it was vitriolic, Cuphead has been brought up again. You want to give an example of this misogyny? Give a source? I'm not saying that nobody faced misogyny or anything from a game review, but like, you show no source, and your source might just happen to be... And I made it the fuck up! Fast forward a week, and players are leveling the very same accusations at the From Software DLC. Yeah, and guess what? Those people are getting clowned by the Elden Ring community because half those people have garbage builds like DSPs, or they're not collecting the fragments like scattered around to make it easier. Countless mods have added easy modes to the game, one called Journalist Mode, despite the fact journos beat the game without needing it. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go ahead and doubt that one, Chief. And are you seriously crying that someone made Journalist Mode as a joke? That's pathetic. Players feel bosses are unfair, they believe the systems are too abstruse, and yet they refuse to engage with some of the game's core mechanics due to believing they're a cheat's way out. I wonder if any of them have apologized to the reviewers who pointed out these very issues. There is no issues with the difficulty of the DLC in Elden Ring. Everything that you need to succeed is in the DLC, but you will have to go around and search for some of those things. It's not just an Elden Ring problem. When Callie Plague reviewed Cyberpunk 2077 for GameSpot, she was hounded by thousands of players for pointing out the game's negatives. She didn't like the edgy aesthetics that played no meaningful part in the gameplay, so she was labeled a prude. She pointed out offensive depictions of minorities, so she was called an SJW. Now, I've never played Cyberpunk 2077, so I don't know if there are offensive depictions of minorities or not, but it would be great if you could show an example instead of just, saying, trust me, bro. But games journalists are the type of people to be offended by nothing. I mean, it's happened in the past. When MW 2019 came out, you guys got offended that it was too realistic, even though that's what they were going for. Well, not you guys, it was IGN. She called out the technical issues obvious even on PC, so she suffered a barrage of hatred. I mean, that happens to everyone who talks negatively about something that somebody likes. I mean, I've got told to basically unsubscribe from the planet because I've criticized Nintendo products. Plague was at the receiving end of a whirlwind of abuse from gamers excited for CD Projekt Red's new title, 8 years in the making. Their excitement, as well as the marketing campaign, blinded them from seeing fair criticism as exactly that. Fair. I don't know her, but I imagine Plague was excited to play the game too. Game journalists and critics like games, and yet her 7 out of 10 review sparked days of collective outrage. However, when the game released, fans saw the truth for themselves. Just days after Plague's review was published, a post appeared on the Cyberpunk oh my god, Reddit, are you fucking kidding me? Everyone talked shit about her, but I'm starting to agree with Kelly Plague. On the whole, the review was more positive than sentiment on the subreddit. The fan reaction was so intense that a new subreddit, r/low-sodium cyberpunk, was set up by the minority of fans wanting to escape the swaths, turning on the game for the exact reasons Plague pointed out. What gives? At what point do you start trusting game critics and those who review your games? Well, when you guys make yourselves trustworthy. Not only do a lot of games journalists give stupid criticisms a lot of the time, but sometimes games journalists will praise games that just simply aren't that good. And you'll see a huge difference on something like Metacritic from the user score to the critic score. As much as you think we're different to you, well, you are. You guys usually get free copies of the game and get the game early, which will probably make you more want to give a positive review so you keep receiving games in the future. We're not. We love video games, we wouldn't do this job otherwise, but we have to be honest about our opinions. Well, no, the reason you do video game journalism is for money. This is like a guy who works at Subway saying, oh, I work at Subway because I love making sandwiches. No, he does it for money. But yeah, the rest of this article is basically them crying, oh, we're human too, respect us, and I mean, it's pointless to go over it, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and peace.